Talking Sheath.
But
Cheese, bro.
That's our new show, Talking Sheath. Coming soon.
But that's really where that's going to be important
Yeah.
for that rhizosheath, because again, those exudates and that kind of micro level right at the root zone.
And it's those, you know, those
There's
different
so much shit going on.
There's so much going on in these symbiotic relationships, right? Of this exudate to then attract maybe a certain fungal species. So it's like you literally have like a bacteria stimulating some exudate from the root that then actually attracts the mycorrhizal. Like what?
We're Jug Dealers, we're the podcast you need in your feed. Teaching the game like you never seen. Jerin, Gabe, GRAMBO, true OGs. Masters of the globe, set your mind free. From Denver, Colorado, where the dead is green. We set the data points for the SOPs. Jug Dealers Podcast, yes indeed.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jug Dealers Podcast, where we discuss all things cannabis and lifestyle related, brought to you by the good people at 5-8, and as always, available at jugdealers.net and jugdealers.shop. Jayhawk, we are in studio.
We are back in studio. It's always good to be back. We've been
you and I have both been
around the world. I've had, it's, I feel like I've lived a lifetime since I sat in the seat last. No, it's great to have you back. Good to see everybody safe and back here and, doing the thing as always. Jug Club is open, as you guys know. You guys have been rocking it out. The first set just blew through. We're getting all the packages out. That's actually literally happening as we speak. Yours truly. These guys are the ones that are doing it all in the background and making it all happen. Hi, we're the everything. So what can you do? So if we're a little bit late, sometimes that happens. Also, all you Jug Club members, we do have a nice little welcome card in there, but I'm going to be honest, it fits rather tight. So just keep that in mind when you get in there. But you guys will see those going out. And in fact, you may already have seen them by now. All right. So today we want to talk about biostimulants. It's something that I think that we talk about loosely at times a little bit. It is a very broad term. Yeah. We're going to do our best to kind of try and highlight a few of the specific areas where we use it, in our plant. But, we want to talk about what are they, how they work, and really one of the things, how they're becoming one of the biggest game changers in cultivation in general, I would say, for regenerative agriculture and things like that, but also obviously specifically cannabis cultivation, which is what, we obviously like to talk about.
How they increase yield too.
Well, that's a big thing. Yield, and also yield of what, right? Because we talk about being oil farmers. So these are the things we talk about that are maybe not the plant necessary, but the plant beneficial. So So we do want to break this down into three different segments, right? The first, we're going to talk about science definition of biostimulants, because we always like to start by defining what we're talking about. Secondly, we're going to talk about, and we're going to break it into some different categories and give some real examples that growers can use and are currently using and take home and use and actually use directly in your garden. And finally, what's the future.
Into the future.
Yes, right. So how do biostimulants increase yield, quality? How does it increase resilience, right? And then, by the end of it, hopefully you should see, you should understand a little bit more of the really what I'd say necessity, not just the benefit, but I'll take it a step further in the necessity to really use these things that, truthfully are a lot of it's, this mysterious area, right? Again, this plant beneficial.
Well, you always talk about, the
how we don't know shit.
Well, yes, but the 17 essential elements, like there's just because plant necessary doesn't mean that plant beneficial doesn't have a meaning too. Right. And that, I think the go-to for us is always silica.
Sure.
It's not one of those 17 essential. Is it plant beneficial?
Absolutely.
You better believe it.
Absolutely. Especially if you have a proper bioavailable form, right? Yeah. So like our Slicium. But again, it's, plant necessary, plant beneficial. Yep. Again, when we talk about positive stresses and we talk about, plant manipulation and things like that. In my mind, this is really where a lot of that comes in. And even when we talk about New Millennium as a line, here's what I'm here to tell you, folks. It doesn't matter what nutrient line you're using out there. They all have the same 17 plant essential nutrients. Why? Because there's not a chemist out there that is going to try to make you fail. Right. If you're using a full line,
nobody wants to see you lose.
No one wants to see you lose. So what is the difference? And to me, there really is only one difference. And that's, is there that additional focus on biology and general biology and biostimulants to really help kick in, into gear those 17 essential that, are going to be there one way or another.
Well, and that's why you, came up with Saucer Base.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like even if carbo doesn't necessarily act as a biostimulant, it's feeding the biostimulant.
Well, right. Well, yeah. And are you feeding the soil to feed the plant? You know what I mean? And different things are like aminos are building blocks, right?
Yep.
We have to have these building blocks available to then be able to make the proteins and then be able to make the whatever we're looking to do, right? So, and again, it is this really truly integral, right? It's this ecology. It's this whole ecosystem. It all works
together,
right?
It all works together.
And again, we know very, very little about some of these interactions. I mean, and what I think is one of the greatest parts about science is being able to match that from what we're seeing personally. We go, well, you know what I mean? When I do this, it just seems like, I decided to throw my oyster shells out in the compost or my lobster shells out in the compost and let it go. And then I threw it on the next year and Jesus, I've never had better plants in my life. So seeing things like that anecdotally, but then be able to go back and prove it with science. That's one of the beautiful things I think that we're finally able to see more of in cannabis because we have a more open and actually some ability to do some research, which is great. Well, let's get into it. GRAMBO, you
dive right in, son.
Or drive right in. So, I
was going to say, let's start by clearing the air.
Yeah,
biostimulants are not fertilizers.
Not fertilizers.
They don't directly feed the plant with NPK. They instead stimulate the plant natural processes to improve nutrient uptake, stress tolerance, overall growth. That's one of the reasons I think the silica is the standout because right there, drought tolerance.
Right.
That is one of the first things we say to people is drought tolerance. How? Because it's actually physically making the cell wall thicker so that it's actually, I always liken it to the airbags on a dump truck.
Sure.
But like that, and that's really what it's doing. But you want to think of them as coaches for your plant's physiology. So that's really what biostimulants are kind of doing.
It's like kind of coating and just like, just its presence alone helps everything, move along better. Like even like an enzyme, right? We've talked about that. Our enzymes in theory in certain processes.
I forget
necessary.
which one. Yeah, I forget which one.
That crazy one.
But it was like without it, it takes like 150,000 times more energy to perform this one process.
Yeah. So it's like, it can happen without enzymes, but if you have them, they're nearly essential for like life to happen in the way that we know it, right? But in theory, like they don't have to be part of the chemical process.
They just unlock things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you want to give people like the school book definition?
I mean, why not? Again, we always like to kind of start at definition and work down from there. So the best definition I think that we can kind of give is substances, and this is a definition for, again, biostimulants, substances or microorganisms that enhance plant growth, not again by providing them nutrients, which we just kind of, got right off the bat, but by stimulating plant metabolism. So things like systemic acquired resistance, things, of that nature that can be done in a variety of ways, whether it's harpin proteins or different things like that, right? But we also want to look at like the difference between biostimulants versus fertilizers versus pesticides too. And I only think we want to draw that line in there because, there can be a little bit of crossover there. Let me give you an example. With something like a cold pressed neem oil like EcoWorks is, that's got micronutrients in it, that has a little bit of nitrogen in it on top of the natural neem that's in there that's the pesticide, right? Yep. And also with certain products like that, or Slicium, right, can actually be integrated into a true IPM program, a true integrated pest management program, right? So, I think it's easy to see some.
You're going to see a lot of different things. You're going to see stress resilience. You're going to see root health. Yeah. You're going to see improved terpene expression.
Very important.
So, and these are all things that, like I say to folks, you want your plant to be doing the work. Yeah. You want your plants to be so healthy in the garden that like, even if you do have a little bit of pest pressure or some type
it's going to rock right through it.
Just like, oh man, like get out of here. You can't do anything to me.
Well, and I think I've even said this on here before, but one of the reasons that I originally got into, more organic food crop production and things like that is I just really didn't want to handle pesticides. I didn't want to be around
petroleum-based pesticides are gnarly.
Yeah, gnarly
and that's
stuff,
what they treat. There's a whole different discussion we had there, but you have all these cancers and all these things that we have in people nowadays. And like, dude, a lot of the pesticides that we've been treating our plants with are petroleum-based pesticides in which they become part of the plant.
Yeah. You can't just get rid of them. These things have half-lives and all kinds of different shit. Right. And so like, I didn't want to mess with that. I didn't want to mess with my plants. So it was one of those things where you very early on, when you learn about that, it's like, how can I give the plant the best possible chance to do it all on its own? So that means having healthy seedlings, selecting the best transplants, you know what I mean? Properly feeding your soil to feed the plant, all these kind of things. But ultimately, no, you don't want to be messing with the plant. You want the plant to do its things. Plant Janitor. I think that's still the number one selling shirt, isn't it, GRAMBO? Is Plant Janitor still winning here?
Oil farmers catching up.
Oil farmers catching up.
I love that oil farmer.
Obviously, we're continuing to put up new merch. You guys have definitely given us some good ideas, and in fact, we did have somebody that requested hoodies and specifically beanies, and I think GRAMBO, you need to put that on the list.
That's easy enough. Creating new designs sometimes pain in the butt, but we
can put the same design on some new stuff.
We'll get some stuff up there.
Go check out the merch. But yeah, I love the Plant Janitor thing. I love how you guys have really like bought into that though, right? Like we're not growers, man. The plants grow themselves. They're the ones that the autotrophs, right? So again, but talking about these things, but you know, the biostimulants, a big part of it is stress mitigation. I can't stress that enough. No pun intended. Obviously heat, drought, salinity issues, possibly transplant shock is a big one. You talk about doing that like a great white or a mycos, dump when you're doing transplants, things like that.
You've been talking to a good friend of the show, Bearstone Ryan.
Yes, Bearstone Ryan.
And you guys, because I mean, you'll hear from me. I'm constantly bashing the hypochlorous, and the reality is, we're kind of talking to some people and trying to figure out some recipes where maybe we can all live in the same world happily in harmony.
Well, we're trying to all work together, right? And a wonderful, let's just say, everybody, I did not want to interrupt the show. However, we need you to help us by taking your grow to the next level. Go right on over to jugdealers.shop and pick up some Slicium. Don't let bugs or a failed AC or a broken pump take your grow down. Get Slicium at jugdealers.shop. It is readily water soluble and uptaken immediately to thicken cell walls and reduce any and all abiotic and biotic stresses. Keep in mind, this is how we support the show. We are never sponsored. We are funded by you taking your grow to the next level. So to support us and your grow, head on over to jugdealers.shop and get yourself something real nice. Now back to the show. Well, we're trying to all work together, right? And a wonderful, let's just say, I don't want to say conundrum, but idea was brought up that there's a threshold too, right?
Yeah, you don't have to put your foot completely on the gas.
Right.
You can maybe feather it.
And is there a threshold that you can get the oxygenation that you want out of it, right? Because hypochlorous acid it's very volatile in the sense that oxygen's popping right off it, right? And that's what's actually cleaning oxidation, right? That's what's doing it. But that's also keeping, a high level of oxygen in the water, right? So if you can use it at just a very small amount and getting the oxygenation of it, but then also be microbe friendly. And that's something that we're definitely doing some,
because we know there's a lot of people who use that stuff.
Right.
And I can go run my mouth about dropping it out of your program, but the reality is a lot of people need to figure out a way. We need to figure out a way to coexist. And Ryan's the perfect guy.
Ryan's perfect. Yeah. And
he's got great experience.
Here's the deal too. He does have great experience. And the reality is this is what you're seeing. You're seeing a lot more people go back to that Synganic approach because it is, in my mind, very much an understanding that there is more than just that 17 plant essential.
It's embracing the whole thing.
And especially for what we're trying to do, because maybe it's not just about THC levels. Maybe it is about the entourage effect. Maybe it's not even just about cannabinoids. Maybe it's also about terpenoids. Maybe it's about flavonoids. Maybe it's about all these other things as well, right?
There's a lot of compounds.
So, and again, the one thing I always like to stress and go back to is we have an infantile amount of actual knowledge when it comes to plants, and they're evolutionary,
and ours even less.
Picture. Yeah,
and it's funny because there's people phrenologists and all these.
Sure.
There's 5,000 different types of ferns, thousands of different types of mushrooms.
Right.
There's people who study one thing, and in our country, it's illegal to study this plant on any type of level. In which we have to recognize all these different varieties that we grow, they all have different needs.
Well, and even, and we talked a lot about that. And even if you read into Mex's, research, you'll see, without saying it, but it's a more scientific way of saying strain specificity. You know what I mean? It's always coming back to that, to having, certain genotype responses. And that's just, kind of part of the deal. One other thing I did want to mention, because I did mention SAR responses, systemic, but you can also get other signaling pathways opened up for like auxins, cytokines, gibberellic acids, things like that. And also like a salicylic acid responses as well, which again, a lot of them are defense responses, things like that, getting it, but doing it, or it's almost like, priming the pump, right? So if you get them all ready to go and have all those defenses already set up, then if there is any insect activity, you can do just like we're talking about before. The plant's ready to go, rocking right through it, and it goes, whatever, man, go to the next one.
Like that.
Go to the next one.
It's like the meme with the Doge, and they're like the Doge. It's like super huge,
right?
Like everything just doesn't even matter,
So let's look at kind of segment 2, and let's start giving some real world, one, categories and then examples of people actually
types of biostimulants, and then what they actually do for us in the cannabis world.
Well, and looking at it as a bit of a toolbox, right? And having something
Very
like, or tool belt or whatever. And it's something that, you can use at different times for different reasons, for different responses, right? And again, these positive stress responses, like a drought response, because what's oil, being oil farmers? Well, it can act as a, something as like a sweater. It can act as a protection from desiccation. It can be like a sunscreen. Do we have an
oil sweaters t-shirt?
We don't have, just oil farmer. Well, it is almost winter.
But that would be a good Christmas sweater. We were talking about maybe a Christmas sweater.
You can't hug anybody.
The oil sweater.
You can't hug anybody.
GRAMBO, write that down, buddy. Write that down.
It's almost a holiday. And we should also mention Black Friday sales coming up. So
good call.
Watch out, guys. That's why you got to join that newsletter. You can go to jugdealers.net. You'll see the join the VIP growers list, and you'll get notified immediately.
Yes, you will. Okay.
Good deals coming.
Good deals coming. So let's talk about the different types, specifically of biostimulants, what they do, and specific to cannabis cultivation. Why don't you start off with our microbials?
Obviously one of our favorites is the trichoderma. That has, we have entire episodes where we talked about these. We kind of wanted to condense it so that we're all in one spot. But trichoderma, helps with root colonization, pathogen suppression, and root exudate stimulation, which is perfect. That if any of you are wondering about that, go look at our rhizo. Did we do a whole episode on just rhizosheath? Or was it the rhizosphere?
Well, maybe
but either way,
it was rhizosphere, but we talked sheath.
Yeah, but
we talked a lot of sheath.
The sheath.
Talking sheath.
But
sheath, bro.
That's our new show, Talking Sheath. Coming soon.
But that's really where that's going to be important for that rhizosheath, because again, those exudates and that kind of micro level at the root zone.
And it's those, there's different,
so much shit going on.
There's so much going on in these symbiotic relationships, right? Of this exudate to then attract maybe a certain fungal species. So it's like you literally have like a bacteria that is then stimulating some exudate from the root that then actually attracts the mycorrhizal. Like what? It's crazy stuff.
So next
down there,
you got the Bacillus subtilis. Again, another one of the favorites.
Love that bacillus.
It induces systemic resistance.
Yes.
Helps with root zone diseases. And then you have mycorrhizal fungi. You have the glomus.
Specifically.
Glomus intraradices is the one that everyone really, I hope I'm saying that right.
Intradices, something like that. Glomus
intradices, but that helps with phosphorus intake, and it helps with stress tolerance. These all work together. But again, as you notice, they're all kind of very specific in what they do.
Right.
There's seaweed and algal extracts.
Well, and not to cut you off, but I did want to talk a little bit of the stress tolerance too with the mycorrhizal. One of the reasons it's doing that is via surface area, right? Because it's increasing the surface area massively of what plants can then uptake water wise, right?
And if you notice on these, like if you look at like, we'll use Recharge as an example.
Sure.
Scotty's a friend of the show, but if you'll notice, like it's like millions of CFU when you look at those,
oh man,
it's a crazy number, and so that's the thing. And that's something you always have to understand too, is, each one of those, they're going to have it listed in a different kind of arrangement.
Yep.
A lot of times what you see, the first three are going to be the ones where they have the most of them. But a lot of them, they're somewhere between 500,000 and 2 million.
And I personally do like the shotgun blast, as I like to say, in part because I still, the lack of research, lack of knowledge,
Yeah,
you know what I
I'm with
mean?
you
Like
100%.
just throw
That's
it out
why I
there.
like the recharge too, because it's got
let science
kinda
happen.
everything in there,
Yeah, let
you know?
science happen. Okay, now back
And
to
if
the
you buy recharge, use code GRAMBO at checkout. I'm an affiliate, baby.
Hey, you son of a bitch. Okay, back to seaweed and algal extracts. Obviously, I think a lot of people, maybe they don't think of it as a biostimulant, right? Kelp is something that's been very, very, commonly used in our production for a long time. Specifically, that Ascophyllum nodosum, right? That particular variety is what we see
in the lightning start, right?
Yes, we definitely have in the lightning start as well, which is a veg-only root and shoot initiator. It's dual purpose,
That's
right?
like
But kelp-based.
That's like one of the products that really kind of gets left behind, I think, in the new millennium regiment. And like, dude,
Oh man,
that stuff is for real, for real.
it is. And what's so interesting, though,
what
too-
is lightning start?
Well, and what's so interesting too, that now we have Rhizium on top of that too, but like lightning start really is more dual purpose. So it's root and shoot, helps everything stack up. Whereas then the Rhizium is going very specifically to that rhizosheath zone, which is maximizing the root hairs and surface surface area. So it's man, a lot of work obviously to be done.
I think a lot of people take for granted the root zone, and they just, whereas it is really, if you have a really healthy root zone going into your transplant, like a lot of times I was just at a building last week talking to these guys, and, I asked them, I said, hey, when you have ones that are like straggling, what do you do? And he's like, well, I just leave them in there. And I'm like, you don't like take them to like a cocoa bed and triage them and like kind of baby them,
do something,
but that's the thing is that, a lot of times I have some stuff at home where I have a couple plants I'm waiting for, just because, and the rest of the room's ready to go. I got 12 plants that are ready.
Right.
But then I have like 3 that are like, and you're like, damn it, come on.
Well, and sometimes that's, is that virtue of, those ones are just behind because maybe they just got overwatered a little bit in the very beginning. And even though they're the same variety, or is it a different variety that just, hey, it's never going to keep up? It's trying to throw like Mac with GMO. It's like, good luck growing those together. That's going to be problematic, the one thing I do want to mention about seaweed too, obviously a lot of natural cytokines, a lot of natural plant hormones in there too. And that's one of the biggest things too. And then you have the polysaccharide stuff, which polysaccharides do a variety of different things, but they including actually terpene production, including floral production, et cetera. And I want to say it's also another, along with phenols, it helps with our systemic acquired resistance as well.
And that's going to help with stronger root systems. It's going to help with stress tolerance.
Yes.
And one thing a lot of people don't really think about is it's going to improve that branching.
And that's kind of that root and shoot, right? That I like to mention with the lightning star very specifically. But, and again, that stress tolerance in part via that maximizing of, the surface area and just that copacetic, that symbiotic relationship that it's helping create in the rhizosphere, in the rhizosheath, in the root zone in general. Why don't we talk a little bit about humic and fulvic acids? And these are, I think these are probably more well-known and understood maybe as a biostimulant. I like to break it down fairly basically just to at least start in that, humics really help a substrate retain nutrients and fulvics help it be uptaken. Reason being, fulvic acids are actually a lighter molecular weight humic. So
and just so people understand, that's the smaller particle inside. So it's humic, but it's the smaller particle in there.
Well, it's
like fulvic is humic, but humic isn't fulvic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. All fulvic acids are humic acids, but not all humic acids are fulvic acids.
Right.
Why? I'm not a chemist, guys. Don't look at me. But really what we're looking to do is we're looking to maximize uptake, right?
And that's the thing. Yeah. You're looking to improve cation exchange capacity. You're looking to improve nutrient chelation.
Right. Natural nutrient chelation.
It is going to bond with those things like iron, those things that are harder for that plant to really uptake on its own because, again, +2s, +3s.
Right.
So that's really where it's going to help. In fact, it really helps with all micronutrient availability in which they're just harder for the plant to uptake.
Not only are they harder to uptake, right? But also, in particular, some plants are lovers of micronutrients more. And the plant that we happen to work with the most is a big time lover of micronutrients, right?
So it puts a lot of things on an even level playing field.
And guess what? You can actually run at a lower EC, right?
Yeah.
If you're able to increase that micronutrient uptake, because like you're saying, micronutrients can be difficult to uptake. So sometimes to account for that, people overrun the EC to just slam more there. there.
Common problem.
Common
we
problem.
See lately,
Common
you know,
problem.
and
Give me a call if you got more questions about that.
Well, and that's it's funny because I was talking to the owner of the company yesterday, and we were talking about a guy who was running at, I want to say like a 15 EC in his media, and we were like, "Hey, bro, like at that rate, you can't just slam him with the Ruby because
no.
it's gonna cook.
It would
him.
unlock so much. It would literally cook the plant. Well, that's the thing. And just, Ruby and Fulvitech, for example, Fulvitech being the injector friendly version of Ruby.
So
in
it doesn't
reality,
have the biostimulant pack, basically.
it has, it has all the fulvic acids, but it doesn't have the bacterial pack.
The thing that does the
stringies,
the
snotty
shark's blood.
Shark's blood.
Shark's blood.
Shark's blood.
Sunleaf.
Yeah, the little chunks. And so it just is a little bit, really, they're both the same multi-source fulvic acids. Reason being multi-source. Again, like I go back to the shotgun blast. I'd always rather have a shotgun blast rather than everything else is really single source. We also extract it in a different way. So our those products on that are super unique on the market and can be ran with anything. But again, be careful if you have a lot of built up EC in the substrate or you're running a very high EC program. If you're running at like 3 or 4 EC, I drop it down to 2.5 if you're going to run alongside Ruby so you don't fry everything.
Yeah, that's the pro tip right there.
Pro tip.
Yeah, don't run a high EC on this out of the rip because it's
a Ferrari, folks.
It's not going to be a good scene.
It's red for a reason. She's a Ferrari. Okay, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about protein hydrosylates and amino acids.
Well, that's a lot to say in one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
They basically act as signaling molecules for nitrogen metabolism.
Yep.
So it's pretty simple. They have a priming effect under stress conditions as well.
Sure.
So they're going to keep everything kind of ready to go just in case.
And it's those building blocks, right? Amino acids, like we were talking earlier, are building blocks of proteins. Proteins are a massive part of so many different signaling pathways and all kinds of different things, right? So very quickly too, we can mention a couple other compounds. Chitosan, which actually
I know you're a big fan.
Well, and I made the nod right off the bat, right? And and even like Coast of Maine, right? Which is a lobster compost. It's the what's the Bay blend they have. Anyway,
it's very, and I'll tell you what, it's very popular in New England.
Yes. But again, what is it? It's that chitosan, which are derived from crustacean cells and I mentioned actually on cicadas, but that's because they're both arthropods, right? So both of their exoskeletons, because that's why they're sea bugs. Crustaceans are sea bugs. That's why I call them sea bugs, because they're actually arthropods, which are very, very closely related to bugs, which also actually, though, the only true bugs are like, they're, it's Hemiptera. See, we did a whole thing. Remember, we did a whole thing on insecta. It's like 32 different orders, I think, of insecta. But anyway, there's only actually one class of true bugs. But anyway, we call all bugs basically, obviously, arthropods.
And then another compound would be silica, as we like to talk about a lot. There's different forms. You got, all different. We got monosilicic acid, you got potassium silicate, you got all these different kinds. It all comes down to availability right there.
Right. And that's the one thing, like not all silicas are biostimulants. No. I do want to make that point, right? One of the reasons that ours is and Slicium is considered a biostimulant is because it is actually stabilizes monomers, dimers, and trimers. So 1, 2, or 3 molecules, meaning it's readily available and water soluble. So it goes right into the water stream and is taken up immediately to then hit that, which is also why it works as a fuller spray.
Yep.
Hemiptera, there it is. I think it's Hemiptera. I think that's the true bugs. Hemiptera. Sorry, I was thinking, you guys see me. You guys probably saw me like sitting here like thinking, trying to keep this shit going. And like I'm saying, sometimes that happens to me. Anyway, but yeah, it has to be also because it's so small, just from a mechanical aspect. That's why you can also fuller spray our silica. If it's just another random potassium silicate or something like that, that's a big, fat, chunky molecule, it can't get through the little.
They form polymers. Those
it can't get through the
polymer chains. And that's really the thing about a monomer sized particle is they're so small that they just stay really far apart from each other. Whereas again, the polymers, they start to form, and then before you know it, it forms a chain in which then it just becomes too big to go through the.
Well, exactly. And these little, well, not only that, it's these little tubes on the top end, which is in the cuticle layer, right? That waxy layer. There's little There's little holes, but they're very small holes. So mechanically speaking, you have to have a very small molecule to actually go through to make it work if you are fuller feeding with it, which again, our Slicium, you can fuller feed on its own, or you can add it into any kind of IPM program, whether it's with the EcoWorks, the Multi, the Russet. I've sprayed it very commonly with Lightning Start and Ruby Fulvic as well. Fantastic product. So
A couple other examples.
yeah, well, and let's even talk about just specifically, what does that really mean for cannabis? You know what I mean? What is that? All this sounds cool. All sounds like plant vigor. But again, going back to Gabe, what's of horticultural significance?
Resin.
Well, there you go. So what's the top cannabis example that we want to bring up?
Improved resin production, especially with some of the kelp extracts.
With some of the kelp extracts. So that's one of the real world, examples. You can also get, certain resin producing responses from a drought response as well, or like a frost response. So that's one of the things the winter frost is going to do is actually you put it on there, makes the plant think it's going to freeze. So first off, initiates senescence. The second off, it makes it think the plant's going to frost. So it pushes out more oil to protect itself, and that's why you see that very
wrap
quick
it up,
push.
B. Wrap it up.
Yeah, that's our thing.
Wrap it up, B. We need one of those in the studio just to wrap it up, B.
And that's what she does. She says, "Hey, it's time to be done," right? And very, very valuable tool in that regard. And that's why you see oil first and you see the color second, because that senescence initiation takes a little while.
Hey guys, today's show is brought to you by jugdealers.shop. You want to grow the best cannabis possible, head over to jugdealers.shop and get something like our Ruby Fulvic. It's going to give you more efficient uptake on your NPK. You could also try our Winter Frost to increase secondary metabolite uptake and improve your cultivar's flavor and phenotypic expression. Or finally, grab some cocoa blocks to save time and money. This is how you can support the show, and it keeps us going. We're never sponsored. We're 100% funded by you taking your garden to the next level. Head over to jugdealers.shop and get something to help your cultivation thrive. Now, back to the show.
Because that senescence initiation takes a little while to see, right? But if a true response to a frost coming on, well, that plant's going to have to do that pretty damn fast, isn't it? So a lot of times people will literally report seeing results in 24, 48 hours.
We
maximum.
saw, again, the guy, shout out to the dude at, I think the HTG in Syracuse.
The peppers.
The ghost pepper dude. He said he put it on before he went to work, and he said it had changed color by the time he got home, 12 hours.
So obviously,
and by the way, we're always talking about ghost peppers.
Yeah, we're always talking about ghost peppers. Another real world cannabis example is stress recovery, specifically with humic and fulvic acids.
Fulvics, yep.
Even if it's like, a lockout in the substrate, like, hitting it with a heavy dose of Ruby to lock everything up and just dump it out.
It just helps condition the soil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I say that to people all the time. Like, hey man, once we'll help use it as far as like, helping lock up plants that are locked up and free up some of that locked up nutrient. But on top of it, it's just a good soil conditioner. It just really kind of helps, if your pH is low, any of those things, it really just kind of helps
my kind of elevator pitch is always just, it conditions the rhizosphere to maximize uptake of any nutrients that it's ran with. Boom. Okay. Yep. Also, behind obviously more resin, more color, more terpenes, things like that. What's the other thing people always talk about? It's obviously yield, right? So when you can actually achieve a yield bump when pairing beneficial microbes and a low salt fertigation, right? So you're actually saving some money, just like we're talking about putting in high quality fulvic acids and running at a lower EC. If you're running at a lower EC, that means it's a lower price per gallon. That means it's going to be a lower price per unit, pound, whatever you want to say, right? So these are the reasons why it matters, because at the end of the day, when you talk to the money man, right, and you talk to somebody who lives in a spreadsheet, biostimulants aren't ever going to matter unless we can make them show.
You can quantify.
They have to be quantifiable.
And even if you get an extra 5 grams per square foot,
hey man, and look,
in a big room, that makes a difference.
And we were talking with Mex. Look, 1% on 1,000 square feet doesn't seem like that big a deal. 1% on 100,000 square feet, 1% on 1,000,000 square feet. That 1% becomes vastly different, right? You know what I mean? It's like that whole thing where I don't think people a lot of times like really truly like grasp numbers. Like it's very difficult, right? So I'm gonna I'll say this like real quick, right? It's so the difference between 1,000,000 seconds, 1,000,000,000 seconds, and 1,000,000,000,000 seconds. 1,000,000 seconds, I want to say, takes about 11 days, something like that, right? A billion seconds takes 31 years.
Oh, damn.
A trillion seconds?
300 years?
Keep going.
1,000?
Keep going.
4,000.
GRAMBO, you got a guess here, buddy?
My intuition said probably like 100,000 somewhere.
Okay,
in that
so he's
neighborhood.
going hardcore because okay, you're going. It's 31,700 years.
31,000.
Wow.
Okay, so again, 11 days,
It's
31 years,
exponential.
31,700 years. So when people start throwing numbers around,
yeah.
just think about that kind of
Exponents
shit.
are a
So
bitch.
yeah. So anyway, there's a little numbers lesson for the day. But let's talk a little bit more too, because this really does lead right into what is the future of biostimulants? Why do they matter? Why does regenerative agriculture matter? What does it matter for the future, whether it's in, agronomic production, which we're seeing a lot of it in, or horticultural production, which is really more we're specialized horticultural production, right? So again, where's all this going, right? Mainstream agriculture, really and truly, biostimulants are one of the fastest growing input categories. And obviously cannabis is seeing that. And
Yeah,
catching
we're
up
playing
quick.
we're playing a game of catch up on this one.
But the reality is, why are we seeing that amount of growth? Because you are able to see it on for lack of a better term, on the spreadsheets, right? So let's talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape, because I think that is worth at least mentioning. There's obviously the EU definition of when you talk about what is a biostimulant, and that's where it gets all the talk up to this point without regulation. It's pretty open and free, and it's a wide
State
umbrella.
by state kind of.
Well, but even just how we talk about biostimulants, like we don't have to put them in these categories. We can just talk about it loosely as like, oh, it's this whole category of different microbes and everything. Well, now when you talk about the FDA or USDA or anything like that, now we really have to put these things into categories. And now you do have to start looking at state to state regulations. Now you have to look at the US versus EU regulations, or wherever, any of this stuff is going, right? The other obviously big part of this is how do you integrate this
into nutrient programs.
existing programs, right?
Yeah, because you don't want to use some of these heavy salts, again, hypochlorous, stuff like that, that's just going to kill off these
But
things.
again, why did we also do that whole, saucer base thing? Because we started layering in biology back into a complete NPK program of someone's choosing,
Well,
right?
that's where I love, that's where I really love the philosophy of the kind of 5.8 New Millennium is Synganics, baby.
Synganics. Synganics.
I had someone.
Our boy Ryan's been tagging it. Synganics.
I was talking to someone on the plane yesterday, and they were like, "Well, what style do you prefer of cultivation? Do you like organic or do you like synthetic?" And I was like, "I like it all, man. Like, and I do it all at the same time.
I am equal opportunity.
You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's coming back around, because I think that was, everybody steered towards that synthetic lifestyle for a while, but then they realized that, like, for lack of a better term, it's just kind of soulless. And no matter how good it looks, if it doesn't perform, if it doesn't hit, then I could really care how good it looks.
And that's the anecdata coming, like our boy over here behind the glass always came. That's the anecdata, with what we're seeing as true data, right? So lower amounts of terpenes, lower, a less complex spread of terpenes, things like that.
Terpenes matter.
Shirt.
Sure.
Sure.
Why not? Terpenes matter.
1,000 t-shirts.
Well,
Hey,
a big thing, and I know Neil is into this, because if you look at any of our bottles, I was talking to someone this week, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we use 40, 50 mils a gallon." I'm like,
Jesus.
There's nothing in the new millennium,
How? It
and so reducing the chemical inputs, supporting the regenerative practices. The big thing you'll notice with any of the new millennium stuff is it is super concentrated. If you look at our CalMag, or our MagCal, I should say. If you look at our MagCal, that thing,
it's better.
I think MadCal,
mad cow disease.
If you look at the MagCal, that gallon is 12 pounds, dude. There's 4 pounds of stuff in there. So it's definitely about reducing some of those chemical inputs
the sustainability
use the biostimulants
aspect
with it.
And I'd like to say that sustainability is a buzzword, but in reality, I feel like it's the future, right? I don't think it's
how many years of FOS do we have left?
Well,
did they say?
Not enough.
Not enough to last us the end of the century.
Yeah, that's
so they're going to have to be figuring it out, and that's a real thing. It's a real that's a real discussion now.
So again, why do regenerative practices? Why do biostimulants matter? Well, again, one is sustainability aspect. So it's for the long term aspect of it. How do we continue to operate, produce food, produce what we're doing, but doing it more efficiently, right? Another benefit of biostimulants as we kind of move through this is that enhanced secondary metabolism, right? So again, just like we're talking about the things that matter to us, cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenes, that's, so it's these secondary metabolites that's really what we're looking for. That's for us what's of horticultural significance. If I was growing hemp for fiber, that's not what's of horticultural significance. So I would approach that even being essentially the same plant. I'm going to grow that differently in a field. I'm going to space it out differently. I'm going to give it different nutrients. I'm going to try and induce different responses, right?
Well, and truth of the matter there is that's why, it was cool to compare it to tomatoes 20 years ago and we didn't have a choice.
We didn't have a choice.
But now that we're really talking about these oils, flavonoid, like all these oils that have these different compounds, it's better. It's better to talk about it in our, we don't have to worry about going in the grocery store and not being able to talk about the
and we have empirical data too. So real trials over time as well, right? Especially with these biostimulants. So whether it's showing an increase in overall yield or an increase in oil production or whatever field you happen to be, whether it's horticultural or agronomy, but the reality is the numbers are there showing anywhere from 5 to 15%. So I'll even use, this is a real world example. I'll give a shout out to Mammoth actually, right? So Mammoth P, which God knows what's even eventually happened with that company, right? But that technology that originally came out to use a consortium, a very specific consortium of several different bacteria to go in and make previously unavailable phosphorus more available. And then literally that phosphorus that's being more available show in the actual yield. That's a home run. That's a home run product. But again, that was also more on the front end for cannabis, looking at this regenerative, type of aspect to it. Right. So I look at that as a product to go, that's kind of the epitome of it right there. Right. So rather than having to throw all this phosphorus in it, well, let's make the phosphorus that's there. It's like you say, you ain't phosphorus deficient.
You gave it phosphorus with the pH down, son. You just got to make that stuff available.
So also, I do think it's very exciting where biostimulant research is headed. I think, I'm just talking about even some of these microbial design or microbial consortiums, enzyme-based stimulants, even some of this CRISPR-driven stuff, which you can...
Pretty cool, man.
And you can have whatever feeling about that, but there's all kinds of shit going on, right?
I am really excited for what the next 10, 20 years, I just turned 50 and I've been in it for 30 years. And I think about everything that's happened in the last 30 years, but the next 10 to 20 is really what I'm most excited about. And it's funny because when we really start nailing it, I'm going to be an old man.
Well,
I mean, I'm already an old man, but I'm really going to be an old man.
And I think what you're even saying too is looking forward to that true precision that we can actually bring to it.
That's where it's going to be really awesome, man. It's going to be, I think we're on the tip of things. We're same thing with all the, pesticides we've been using for years. We're just at the tip where we went really, really hard.
And now we're having to figure this out. And now we're the fucking guinea pigs.
It's a cool thing.
And we are getting old. And, and happy birthday to you, Gabe. And I know this is a very important milestone.
Buddy.
And I know you were able to go out and do something really special for you. So I'm super happy for you to be able to do that. And happy to be able to do the show with you and honestly see that vision of really, that where we come to this strain specificity. We talk about this really tailored approach to cannabis.
We talk about, I mean, not for nothing, bro, but we talk about, everybody do a dab. But, we cover a lot of topics that other people just are not, they're so ingrained, they've been so ingrained into this believing that you got to run your gardens at 5 OEC and all the rest of this stuff. And here we are the whole time, with our flags, hey man, you don't have to do that. You can still do the thing and be successful. And now after, 5, 7, 10 years of standing on our soapbox, people are starting to come back. And Ryan being a perfect example.
Yeah.
But, the people who believe, no.
Here's the thing too, and I'm not going to name any names, but I think it's interesting what's happened out there in the industry is actually it inadvertently proved a lot of the things that we've been talking about for a long time. This soulless aspect of it, strip the biology away, and there goes the soul. Okay, so we'll leave it we'll leave it at that. But that is the breakdown, guys. Right? Biostimulants are not plant food; they're plant enhancers. They're facilitators, right? For anything from microbes to humics and all these different, what I would consider to be natural allies to the cannabis that have evolved right along with them their entire existence, which near as we can tell is a hell of a long time, right?
Yeah.
Also, again, these stress responses, unlocking nutrients, and really ultimately pushing quality to the next level and really being able to focus in and pinpoint on what's of horticultural significance to us and all the people out there that are really trying to, figure out what the heck this genetic potential really is, or at least continue to move forward towards that.
It's funny. We both went on trips to Europe a couple of weeks ago now when the show airs, but I saw a lot of restaurants in Italy that had been around 100 years that I ended up eating at. And how does a restaurant stay in business 100 years? Because the food is really, really effing good.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to is, no matter how good whatever you're growing looks, if it doesn't taste good, no one's coming back. But if it does taste good, people are coming back over and over and over again. And we always tell people, hey man, we're giving you the salt, we're giving you the pepper, we're giving you the spices
and
to help make your stuff stand out. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. No matter what happens with Schedule 3 or whatever's going on, truth of the matter is, if you're growing that fire, if you're like the press club and you have that cut of Bubba, that's your cut that you do right every time, guess what? Every time it comes on the market, it's gone.
And it's fire in, fire out, right? You get out what you put into it. And we really believe in that. We believe in the plant. We believe in that, that ethos of respect and coddling and janitoring just enough to get what we're looking out of it. Anyway, guys, this has really been a fun conversation. Thanks for coming and listening as usual. Until next time, keep it growing, keep learning, and keep it nice and resinous, folks.
We love you guys.
All right. Talk soon.